I was born in Chicago, Illinois, the United States. Family, German, Austrian immigrants. Lived there my young years. Finally went to the university in that state. And only then, after university days, did I understood that I was gay. Looked at other young men and wished I could be with them, but thinking then I was the only person in the world with such feelings. And that's how it was for many of us elderly gays, lesbians, and trans people. We thought then we were the only ones in the world because we didn't see any other gays. Nothing. There was nothing in the films or the television or the newspapers. We thought we were the only ones in the world, and we were wrong. But it turned out we were very right. After university, feeling I was the only one in the world, I went into the Peace Corps. That was this American program to go to countries like South America, Asia, Africa, and work with poor people. And I came to Peru and worked there, and it's then I decided, wait a minute, I think I'm gay. And I met a few other people who were also gay, and I got my gay identity in Peru and became aware of who I was and who I wanted to be. While in the Peace Corps in Peru, working with poor people in slum areas, we understood that the Vietnam War was escalating. They were even importing American Peace Corps workers in Asia, Africa, Latin America, back to America to go into the Vietnam War preparation. And we thought this was the wrong war, the wrong American policy. So I quit the Peace Corps and I quit working for America, and I asked somewhere, I want asylum. And there were very few places that gave asylum to American Vietnam War resistors and deserters. Sweden was one of the few people who gave us asylum. So we were 1,000 American war resistors and deserters who came to Sweden. I was one of them, and I'm still here. Before coming to Sweden, it was difficult. You didn't know where you could go, which country would take you. I was in Peru, then I came to Brazil, military dictatorship. Could I stay here forever with a military dictatorship? Shall I come to Europe? Shall I look for some country that would take us as asylum seekers? France said yes if you keep quiet and don't speak about politics. England said no. Germany said no. Many other countries said no. But Sweden said yes. And Sweden accepted us. War resistors and deserters were welcome to Sweden. We were 1,000. Some are still here. I'm still here. But many returned after the war back to the United States. The first 2 years I was in Sweden, the Vietnam War was still going on. We marched against this war. We had many programs against the war, and leaflets and publications denouncing the war, Americans against the Vietnam War. 2 years we did this, and my gay colleague said, wait a minute, when are you going to come and work with us? And I said, when the war is finished, I'm coming to you. And after 2 years, I came to the gay movement in Sweden. The national organization is called RFSL. I came to the RFSL. We worked together, not only for the day, not only for the year, but for years afterwards. We worked together with the gay liberation movement, not only in Sweden, not only in the Nordic area, but with our colleagues in Europe, Eastern Europe, and elsewhere. The Swedish gay movement, I think this is now years and years ago, remember, it was a bit provincial. And we had to work together with this International Gay Lesbian Association to make it more international. We had great ambitions to make it Nordic, not only Sweden, but our Nordic colleagues, Denmark, Finland, Norway, Iceland, and the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. We worked together in our organization, Tupilak, and the reason we started with Tupilak is the politicians, the political activists were very concentrated on legislation. Make legislation better. And we said culture is half of the battle. You can work as much as you wish with legislation, but if you don't work with culture, you don't change people's mentalities. And that's why Tupilak and the International Lesbian Gay Network works together with legislation and culture to change people's minds. We in Tupilak, Nordic Cultural Organization, and the ILGCN International Network, we had a bit of trouble with the RFSL and with the international movement ILGA. The trouble was they are very concentrated on legislation. We have to change the legislation. And we said, even in countries like Sweden, where the legislation is almost perfect, it's almost perfect, it doesn't change people's minds. It doesn't get rid of the homophobia. It doesn't change youngsters in the school classes who bully small, young, gay, lesbian, trans people. You gotta change their minds. And how do you do this? With culture, films, newspaper articles, radio interviews, artwork, ballet, dance, theater. That's how you change people's minds. So I left RFSL and I left the ILGA and made Tupilak and this international network, and we're still 30 years later working with culture. We believe that's the best weapon against homophobia. At ILGA, we worked for about 10 years with the ILGA, International Lesbian Gay Association Bulletin. We worked because it came from Ireland and they got tired of working with it, and we came to Sweden, Stockholm, to work with the ILGA Bulletin. And I and some other colleagues from England, from Greece, from other places worked for 10 years on this bulletin. And you know, we did something quite astounding. The first bulletins were only text, like a telephone book. Text, text, text. And we said, how about a photo? How about artwork? How about an illustration? Let's put a bit of culture into this communication. And we did, and we did. And I said, I would have worked even more with ILGA, except that they were so negative towards culture. Their argument was this: culture takes away from our ambition to change the legislation. And we said, culture is a good ally for changing the legislation. It's not an enemy. It's not an adversary. It's a good colleague to change people's minds. Let's work together. The political activists, the cultural activists, work together. At the RFSL, I was like their international secretary for about 10 years. I went to ILGA conferences, I represented Sweden whatsoever. We worked on the bulletin of the ILGA, we worked together in conferences, and I remember even in Nordic conferences, we worked very much to include women, because they didn't always include women. You have to remember, activists are a bit fanatical, they're a bit blind. They don't always understand that women are part of our movement, the disabled are part of our movement, the trans people are part of our movement. It takes sometimes activists years to understand that we are a solidarity movement including everyone. And after about 10 years, when RFSL did not want to include culture, after a while, I decided to make Tupilak our cultural organization and the ILGCN our cultural network. When the RFSL had trouble working with culture, when ILGA had a conference in Paris, they did have an international conference when I was there, again as the RFSL International Secretary. They actually told us, please don't talk about culture, because culture is detrimental for our work with legislation. And we said, no, it's part of it. And even they put our seminar about culture in the back room, where it could not make any proposals, like suggestions, work with culture as well. And when they said no, my best friend said, please find another place to talk about culture. ILGA is not the place. We founded the International Rainbow Cultural Network, ILGCN. And that's when we left ILGA, still doing good work, but very much the political legislation work, which we repeat, is only half the battle. It's not the whole battle. But if you don't change people's minds and attitudes, and you do this how? Pride is good because it comes and goes. Film festivals are wonderful, but they come and go. You need something all year round. Films, newspaper articles, books in the library, you need television programs, you need artwork, you need illustration, you need sculpture work, you need all of these things daily, not once a year. You need it daily to say, we are part of the culture. We have much to give and much to get. Good people, I must admit, being an old man, 207 years old, too old, I've forgotten very much. But I remember many years ago when I made a stopover from Sweden on the way to Australia, I made a stopover in Japan. And to my great happiness, a Swedish magazine, a gay magazine, wrote about Toshiro Minami. So I contacted him and I said, hello, I'm here. Shall we get together? And he said, yes, let's get together. And not only that, he invited me to his home because I was at a hotel, and in his home, he had to build a little wooden bed in the kitchen in the evening with his man, at that time a ballet dancer, and invited me to be part of the Japanese mentality. And I was so proud and pleased to meet him, his man, and others. And at that time, he even suggested I go to a couple of gay pubs, and I went there. One of them threw me out because I wasn't Japanese. The other said, yes, you're welcome. So I had a wonderful experience. Toshiro, he gave me a great deal of friendliness, inspiration, and joy. And he thinks that I gave him fire. Not true. His fire was inside him. He made fire. He made things happen in Japan. I only was a passerby. I only went through. But we've had contact since then. Of course, my discussion with Toshiro was, what are you doing here? What are we doing in Sweden? What should we do together? Of course the discussions were about this. How about a film festival? How about a exhibition? How about working together with ILGA, the International Gay Association? Even if they were a bit foolish when it came to culture, they were still developing. How about working together? And why is Japan important? For all of us working together, Sweden, Japan, Bulgaria, Brazil, all of us working together, because you know why? We LGBT people, we are everywhere, every when, and should work together. I was very pleased after so many years to get contact again with Japan, again with colleagues of Toshiro and Toshiro himself. And it was a Zoom. Do you understand, you good people? Before we didn't even know what Zoom was. We had no way to communicate cheaply, efficiently with people. We had to write a letter and hope that the letter got there after 3 weeks. Suddenly there was Zoom and we could talk to each other. And thanks to Toshiro and his friends, they contacted me and there was a translator. We could talk to each other. And suddenly the Japanese-Swedish ties were renewed after so many years. And I was very pleased not only to speak with him again, but to speak with the others all around him and to see that he had support, he had done things, and that you, Japanese colleagues, appreciated his work. That was important. Because you see, sometimes youngsters ignore the old-timers. They don't give a fuck about the old-timers. And here, Toshiro was considered a hero, and that made me feel very good. I came to Sweden as a journalist from America, from Peru, from Brazil. I had a radio program, and I finally came to Sweden. And after a while, I got a job at Swedish Radio, Radio Sweden, English language. And I worked there for 40 years. I did many programs about culture, about politics, about human rights. I did many about LGBT questions. So much my colleagues said, please stop making more programs. Let somebody else do it. And I said, yes, let somebody else do it. I don't have to be the only one. But I was actually the only one for many years making LGBT programs. And I have to say, 40 years before I retired, my most memorial day was this. Press conference with Nelson Mandela from Africa. He came to a big press conference with 100 people asking question after question after question, and I was waiting my turn about number 30. So what was my question? I said, what are you doing for the LGBT people? Because I heard that when he was still in prison, LGBT people were standing outside with the rainbow flag saying, free Nelson Mandela. And his colleagues said, shall we send these people away? They're disturbing us. And Nelson Mandela said, not at all. They're part of our movement. They shall be there like anyone else. And then when he became president a few years later, I asked them this question in this press conference. What will you do for the LGBT people? They were standing outside saying, free Nelson Mandela. And he said this, we will make all efforts to include the LGBT people in our country. And a few years later, he changed the constitution of South Africa as the first country in the world to include LGBT rights. Wasn't Denmark, wasn't Sweden, wasn't America, wasn't Japan. It was South Africa, thanks to Nelson Mandela. And I was so pleased that I asked him that question, and I was pleased that he gave that such good answer. And I wrote it up in the papers as he says he will work for LGBT people. And he did. And later, before he died, one of our awards was the Golden Tupilak. We gave it to Nelson Mandela just before he died. He accepted it and said thank you. And we went to the South African embassy here and gave the diploma to the ambassador, who sent it off to Nelson Mandela. For 15 years, I could not return to the United States because I was an enemy of the States. I was a war resister. I was a criminal. I would have received 5 years prison. So I did not go back. Later, there was a very good president, very few such good presidents in America, called Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter removed the prison term for war resistors. He said, took it away, simply said you are no longer criminals. So I could go back. And I went back to see my family, who I had only been talking to for years. And then I went back once more when my brother died to his funeral. And that's the last time I've been there. But I have to say that for years I could not go back because of this prison stamp. 5 years prison, because you see, they wanted to make sure that more people would not be deserters, so they gave them 5 years prison. And those military people who came back, they let them off after a few months because they wanted more people to come back. But not we war resistors. And I have to say that since then I've been in contact with my cousins, but I've not been back since. You know, human rights activists, you think they're perfect and pioneers. The truth is, no, they're limited. If they're men, they're limited. If they're nationalistic, they're limited. When it comes to other people, other races, yes, human rights are not perfect. People, gay people in Sweden, working with human LGBT rights. For years, they did not include women. For years, they did not include immigrants. They did not include trans people. It took years of development to include everybody, and you can make a powerful army of human rights workers. But the early years, it's true, the men were quite stupid. The men were quite limited. They didn't think. And this is human history. And look at the planet today. Women in Afghanistan, women in Iran. They have to fight to show them their faces, to be part of the development. They have to kill themselves to be part of because men think they know it all. They can do it all, and nobody else can do nothing, which is so stupid and so dumb. Because without the women, without the immigrants, without the disabled, without the blacks and the browns and the yellows and the red, we are nothing. Together we are an army that can change life on this planet. Look it, I'm 212 years old. I have to turn things over to the youngsters. I have difficulty walking. I have troubles with the legs. What I want to say is, I will continue to come to seminars and art shows and press conferences and speak because I still have a voice. But I think my main job is to open the door to young people who are coming after us with new ideas and new energy. And I think they will be doing, and Tashiro is the same with 92. Pioneers know that it's often the most wonderful thing is to see a younger person come along with the same fire and the same inspiration and the same desire. Let's change things. That is our motivation for the future. Let me say, as an exile, as a refugee, as a journalist, I've made so many mistakes in my life, so many missed opportunities in my life, but I'm very proud that I came to Sweden. I refuse to go to the Vietnam War. I refuse to kill people or to be killed for such a disastrous war. And you know what? Look around. That war hasn't made world peace. The whole world is filled with warfare today in so many countries. People are still killing and dying. So we have much, much to do. But I say, I regret all the mistakes I've made, that's true. And all the missed opportunities. All the young men I wanted to have sex with and I missed them. But I'm saying, I'm pleased that I came here. I'm pleased that I'm working together with wonderful people in RFSL. I was pleased to meet Toshiro Minami. He was part of my earlier lifetime. I'm pleased to have met other people like him doing good things. I'm pleased to see the women, the trans, the black, the brown, the handicapped people working with us today. I'm pleased to know them, and I'm pleased to say that we included them. We have an award for the handicapped. We have a diploma for the trans people. We have a diploma for women to give them a boost. We have a diploma for the people with HIV/AIDS, because so many have ignored them, thought they were nothing. They were bad for our reputation. On the contrary, they're part of our history and part of our power, the HIV and AIDS people. They've made our life more dramatic, more important. And yes, sorry, talking too much. A message to the youngsters. We're so glad that you're on your way. And we want you to join us, and we want you to come with your power and inspiration, because you see, the past is the past and connects today and the future. And you are the present, but you belong to the past and you belong to the future. Together, we can change things. We can change this world that you're growing up in. And you've got this wonderful opportunity to be yourselves, to be free, to enjoy what we've done for you and what you will do for us. Together we can change this planet. Please keep on working.